Welcome back into the Rounding Third podcast. I'm Nick. We have Harrison with us tonight. How are we doing, bud?
I'm awesome, Nick. How are you?
Not too bad. Sean is wrapping up some year-end school stuff, so we might see him. We might not. We'll see. He said he possibly could pop on later, but
Yeah,
we will see.
God bless all you teachers who are wrapping up yet another school year where you don't get paid enough or treated well enough.
Yeah, physically and mentally. But that's another story. But all right. Before we get going, make sure you follow and like us on Facebook. You can also follow us on Instagram. You can also subscribe on YouTube, and you can also listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. All right. Before we get into all of our stuff, I would first of all like to thank everybody for their support right off the top. We're almost at 2,000 followers on Facebook. And the support coming in with all our trivia and stuff means a lot. Like, we love the interactions. We love providing that stuff for you guys. I would like to formally apologize to all the grammar police out there for one of the trivia questions last week that went viral, and I just got absolutely roasted on my grammar. So I'm sorry, but still, like, it really is unreal. I mean, you get the gist of the question I was asking, and then just get attacked with grammar.
We've got 144,000 views, and hundreds of comments, and it's like 50% people answering the question, 50% people that are like, "Did this guy go to school?" Like, somebody educate him on how to use the English language.
Listen, I live in the county of North Carolina now, so like grammar's not a thing. So my bad, y'all.
But what I'd like to say, and those that have been with us for a while now, because we're going into our third year of this, Nick. We've been doing this a little while. Yeah. This show is live. It is raw. It is unedited. It is three sports brains sitting there talking. Mm-hmm. We don't script it. We don't plan it. We literally have a rough outline and we just talk baseball. So if you don't like when we slip and say something stupid, then maybe this isn't the show for you. But I will say, if you just want to hear raw, unfiltered baseball conversation, we're your people. Absolutely. We had a reel last year that got like 500,000 views where I butchered a trivia question, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
it was awesome. I mean, it helps the show grow. It helps get more eyes on our stuff. It brings in a lot more followers, listeners, people watching, and we appreciate all the support. And we've even had people that are in the chat, like, and in the comments, like, defending us in these. And you know what? Sometimes we say things backwards and we screw it up, and that's the beauty of a live show. There's no taking it back.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely love it. I love the interaction. So keep it up.
It's beautiful. Bring it. I'm not afraid. You can make fun of me. I'll be okay tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's dive right into the big news of last week. I mean, the internet kind of exploded in the baseball world here, where MLB announced that the Negro League stats are officially going to enter the MLB record books. A lot of mixed, I mean, it's either black or white here. You're either on the left or the right of this issue. There's no really in between. You're either for the records going into the books or you're completely against it. That being said, I'm kind of on the fence. Like, as weird as that might sound, but
I'm with you.
I am for the integration of the record. These guys deserve all the recognition in the world. And I get the argument that people are like, oh, well, now it opens up to the Japanese stats coming into MLB. No, like, they have their own league. The Nippon Baseball League has their own league that these guys were all allowed to play in. Here in America, they were not allowed to play with whites. So therefore, they had to form this league in order to play baseball. And before we even get to that point of it, MLB had recognized all the other leagues before that. Like in the late 1800s, the early 1900s, they had already put all those leagues into the MLB record books and left the Negro League stats. I believe that happened in 1969 is when they did that. So they still were segregating the Negro Leagues, being like, no, it's not going to happen. MLB in 2020 officially elevated the Negro Leagues to Major League status. To me, right then, that's when the records should have gone in the record books. If you're elevating that league to an MLB status, then those records need to be counted. So, like, I don't know. Like, what is your your first initial thought on all of this?
Yeah, well, I've got a bunch of issues with this, and the first one comes down to what MLB did. So what you're talking about is exactly where my head goes. In 2020, during the pandemic, when the world wasn't paying attention, MLB goes, "Hey, by the way, the Negro Leagues are now considered major league level." Surprise! I don't think most fans even caught that.
Right.
There was no press release, there was no announcement, there was no like MLB Network special. Like it was just like I think they posted on their Facebook page, sent out a quick press release, and moved on. The world wasn't listening. So that's my first problem. MLB does this, basically tells nobody. And then they come around on a random Tuesday afternoon in May of 2024 and say, "Hey, by the way, we're going to integrate the record books too." And because of that, we're going to have a bunch of long-standing major league records that get overwritten with new holders of those records. To which we all say, "What?" Like on a random Tuesday in May, we're gonna do this, and literally MLB didn't even announce it. It leaked, leaked to a series of media outlets that reported it. So, in typical MLB fashion, I think had good intentions. I think this is the right thing to do starting off. I think elevating the Negro Leagues, although not necessary, I think it needed to be done just to prove to people that it belonged at that status.
Yeah,
it already was in most people's minds, but it needed the official elevation. And then putting the records in there, just you have to acknowledge the fact that these players had stats. These players did some pretty incredible things that most people have no idea about. But where MLB misses it is this was MLB's chance to unveil this big change and talk about the Negro Leagues and highlight the Negro Leagues and tell the story of the Negro Leagues and give people the reason why. Celebrate the Negro Leagues with this. Instead, MLB just throws out a press release, sticks the records in there, and goes, "Hey, look what we did." Yeah. They completely miss it time and again. Rob Manfred is so tone deaf to the fan that it's frustrating.
Yeah.
This should have been an event. They should have done it like at the All-Star break or between the championship series and the World Series. This should have been an event. It should have been a big announcement, a big splash, a special, a conversation, an unveiling. Instead, it's a press release at 2:00 on a Tuesday afternoon in May when nobody's paying any attention, and they wonder why the fans are all riled up. Nobody knows what you just did or why you did it. And MLB just continues to swing and miss at opportunities to promote the game and its history.
Yeah. And they're not putting in all the statistics here. They've done.
Most people don't even understand that fact. Like another part of it.
Right. They have done their research. It's not like they're like, yeah, we're just going to throw the stats in there. No, they've had historians go back through. From what I've read, they're not counting the barnstorming, the exhibitions. That's why Josh Gibson's only getting credited for, 238 home runs.
Yeah, 230 something.
Right?
Yep.
They said he's probably close to 800 in his career, like counting barnstorming and all of those other exhibition games too. These are only the stats that they can officially validate, right? They're not just throwing in stats willy-nilly. These are all, I have some others, like they're adding Satchel Paige now has the third best single season ERA at 1.01 in 1944. And his career victory total from 28 to 124. So that's kind of a significant jump. But they're going to count from Mays has some more hits in that first season with the Barons that they're going to count. So Jackie Robinson has 49 more career hits. And Minnie Minoso, 150 hits, puts him over the 2,000 hit threshold. So, they're not entering every single stat that these guys ever played in.
Right. Well, and the sad part is that the stats that were kept are relatively incomplete. They don't know how many strikeouts Josh Gibson had. They know how many walks he might have had, but they don't know how many strikeouts he had. They know roughly what his batting average is, but they can't really truly verify some of the stuff. And what people don't realize, again, because MLB didn't tell them, is when they announced they're elevating the Negro Leagues in 2020, they began this project. They've been working for the last 3 years. They've got a group of statisticians that work together to validate every possible stat they could. And they took 3 years to do that before they unveiled this thing.
Right.
So it's not like they just grabbed whatever clippings they could and said, boom, here's the new stat book. No, it was, we're going to go through and validate everything we can. And in fairness, they threw the barnstorming games out, which you could argue maybe you shouldn't. I mean, the reality of it is the Negro Leagues, there were not that many teams. These guys played 50 to 60 games a year. I mean, Josh Gibson's career, he only has credit for like 600 games played in 14 years. I mean, they're playing 50 to 60 games a year. And to fill the schedule, they would travel and they would go find other local teams. Those local teams might have been nothing more than maybe like a men's league in what we would call today's terms, but they played as many games as they could because they didn't have enough teams to make a full schedule. So these guys went to these tournaments and these events and these barnstorming things where they would just go out and find teams to play and they'd play. It may have looked a lot like pickup baseball, but that's all they had. So I get not including those stats because you definitely weren't playing major league caliber level players. But at the same time, like, you're also taking away a piece of the body of work where these guys had to go find games to play. Otherwise, there would have been no reason for the Negro Leagues to exist. There weren't enough games there to keep these guys busy.
Yeah. I love the argument where it's like, I think I threw a comment in there somewhere and it was like, Babe Ruth wouldn't necessarily Babe Ruth if it was integrated. And Babe Ruth himself had said that. He's like, I may not be the best player in the world. Like, there might be other guys that we have no idea of their talent. And he was pretty vocal about integration during his time playing. Like, he was all for it. I don't know. I get it. Like you said, not the highest level, but they did what they had to because they weren't allowed to play at the highest level.
Right. Yeah, it's true. And there's been a ton of articles. They've been in The Athletic, the New York Times. They've been all over. I've seen stuff on CNBC and NBC and all everywhere. Reverend Al Sharpton saying the timing of this is disgusting and is tone deaf, which I agree with. Yeah. Other groups saying that MLB didn't have to do this because they've already elevated the Negro Leagues, or people saying to put asterisks on the record so that they stand out so people can see these were Negro League players. People saying put asterisk on the stats because they really don't know if they can believe them or consider them equivalent. So people are all over the place on this. Where I understand the argument is when you say, well, they didn't play in the same league. They didn't play against the same competition. They didn't play in the same conditions. And I would argue that argument works both ways. If you put Josh Gibson on the New York Yankees in a great lineup in a great ballpark with better equipment and all the stuff, he might have been better. We just don't know.
Right.
But I get the argument of, was the competition level the same? We don't know. Were the conditions the same? We don't know. Like, we just don't know. We don't know enough about it. So I get the argument of, can you really compare these side by side, or is it apples and oranges? And I feel that way to a certain extent. But when you really think about it, those Negro League players may have actually put up better stats in better conditions. So you can't make that argument and not think about the other side of it, where that would have been actually a benefit to the Negro League players to be able to travel and play a full season and have better teammates and better conditions and better equipment and better everything. Yeah. So I get that argument, and I find myself almost talking myself out of it because there's two sides to that. But I think you have to acknowledge that these players, they had stats, they played games, they are very talented. And unfortunately, we're in this position because as a country and society, we just weren't smart enough to realize back in the 30s and 40s what we were doing. Right. This seemed right at the time. When you look back, you realize it's wrong. And the biggest regret is that I really wish you could have seen what some of these players would have done in Major League Baseball.
1,000% agree. I would have given you guys know how I felt about Josh Gibson. I've loved Josh Gibson. I have him as my best all-time catcher when we first started the show 3 years ago, and Sean was giving me a whole bunch of grief for it. But as it shows, like, the stats that they are letting in shows like what kind of player this guy was. There could be the best of all time. But again, like, to your argument, we just don't know.
Right.
Like, and that's the hard part of this. But I saw some other interesting comments that I'm just going to share, like, throughout the whole, reading through the comment section and seeing what all these nuts have to say. But I saw one: if Negro League stats shouldn't count, then no stats before integration should count. We want to pretend like racism didn't exist, then we wipe the slate before integration. And I was like,
that's the other side of the argument. If you don't want to count the Negro League stats, then why should you count anything else? If you're going to argue they didn't play in the same league, well, you can argue that on the other direction. What if major league hitters had to face Satchel Paige all those years?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I think that you can't take a one-sided view of this because there's a lot to dig into here. Because were the leagues the same? No.
You can take a one-sided view. It's just not.
Yeah, you sound ridiculous, but yes, you can.
Yeah,
you absolutely can.
So now Josh Gibson is now the career average leader, 372 ahead of Ty Cobb. Slugging percentage 718 ahead of Babe Ruth, and OPS a 1.177 ahead of Ruth. Those are also all single season records in those three categories.
Yes, and his 466 average in 1943 is now the highest single season average in baseball history as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I get it. Like it's been a long time coming, and these guys, like I said at the top of the show, like they need the recognition. Like these guys weren't slouches. I mean, they just weren't allowed to play because whites kept them out. And don't give me that argument again. Like I said, that it now opens the books for like, oh, Japanese player stats and all that stuff. No, they had their own separate league. They were allowed to play. These guys weren't. And that's what it comes down to. We said, no, you can't come play with us because you're black. And that's that. So they had to form their own thing in order to play.
Right.
Like, that's your mistake.
It is. I mean, it's a sad aspect of history that, you have to reconcile the best you can. Another great example is Barry Bonds' single season 863 slugging percentage record in 2001. In 2001, he now falls to fifth,
right,
behind 4 Negro League players, who will step in front of him. So, a lot of your baseball purists are going, well, so all of a sudden Barry Bonds is fifth. Well, he might have always been fifth. We were chasing the wrong benchmark because we didn't know.
Well, and let's be honest, a lot of people don't even recognize that stat anyways because of the whole steroid thing. So you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth there. Yeah. You can't say, oh, well, you can't take Barry Bonds off the record book. Well, you don't even count his all-time career home run records because, steroids, which is also another tired argument, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. But you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth there.
MLB needs to cleanse that mistake too, but that's a whole nother argument for another day. But so when you kind of run down the road a little further, MLB's been working on this for 3 years. This was not just randomly done and thrown together. It's been a 3-year research project. The stats are still in the process of being integrated. They're not fully integrated yet. And the full MLB statistical database will become public on June 20th. Before the Cardinals and Giants play a tribute game to the Negro Leagues at Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama. So this is still happening. It's still in process. You're still 2 weeks away from having the final results. But they will make all these stats public, and they will or public here on the 20th. They will also be going into the Cooperstown plaques to update any players that are now getting stats from the Negro Leagues. Willie Mays, Minnie Minoso, other players are picking up stats, Jackie Robinson, from time they spent in the Negro Leagues.
Yep.
And then making plaques that are missing for players that had some of these major milestones. So there's a lot of other stuff to happen here, but ultimately, this work has been done. It's been vetted. It's been approved by Major League Baseball. A whole committee went through it, and it, effectively goes live on June 20th.
Yeah. And the fact they're like, oh, we'll just leave it alone. History is history. Okay. I kind of agree with that argument. Yes, history is history. But after reading through the comments, we haven't made any progress as a country. To be completely honest, we haven't. And have we made some? Of course we have. We have. But you can rectify that mistake. And this is the first step in that, for sure. And doing these tribute games at Rickwood Field, that, I can't wait for that. I think that's going to be an awesome event.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Yeah. Because we've seen those specialty games, like the Little League World Series games that they brought to Pennsylvania, the Field of Dream games. At first we were like, are these gimmicky? What are these going to look like? But they turned out to be pretty damn awesome. I love them. So I really hope that they do the Rickwood Field game justice, which I think they will. When they do these games, it's a big production. Like they go down through the history of it, which we all love. Like baseball's so old that we all love the history of the game.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think the integration of these stats to the MLB record books is where it's what needs to happen for sure.
Well, and I think one of the things that makes baseball so great is that it has such a long, rich history. There's no other sport that goes back officially as far as Major League Baseball does. Football's got some history, but like half what MLB has, maybe not even half what MLB has. Hockey's got some history. Basketball's got some history, but no league goes back into the 1800s like MLB does. Right. And that's the beauty of baseball. It has been around for so long, and stats have been kept for so long, and there's such a deep, rich history of people and stadiums and stories that I think that's one of the things that makes baseball special. It also makes baseball really hard. Right. And we debate this on the show all the time. What would Babe Ruth do in today's game? What would Aaron Judge do in that game? What kind of player would Willie Mays be today? Like, we have these arguments all the time, and you don't know. And the argument's always, well, they played in different times, different conditions, blah, blah, blah. Same argument for the Negro Leagues. They also played in different conditions and different times, and even their counterparts in the same era. Era to era, this game's hard to judge. Right. But even in the same era, they had the same thing. The game of baseball, and this is where some people were making the argument, the game of baseball is the same everywhere, largely. And that's people were saying, well, if you're going to make the Negro Leagues, then you should make the leagues in Japan and China and all. No, well, yes, it's the same game. I understand. I can appreciate that, but it's not the same game.
It's not an American league. It's not a league that was formed in America.
Right. They might be playing the same game, but it's not the same game necessarily. There are nuances. There's also a geographical difference. There's league differences. There's different standards. I mean, it's not the same. No. But the Negro Leagues is one of the closest things we have to a parallel at the time, because those players were, in most cases, major league quality players that just weren't allowed to play.
Yeah.
So they had to form their own league, which arguably you could say is probably pretty close talent-wise, maybe not as deep, but your top end was probably all equivalent to the top end of Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
It's an easier comparison to make, and it's easier to say, were they different? Yes. But are they close enough you can compare them? Also, yes.
Right.
The issue that I always had was, how do you verify the stats? And MLB finally did the work to do that and validate whatever they could. It is a shame that Josh Gibson's home run stats are going to end up where they end up. I can appreciate why, but the stories of Josh Gibson and the aura of Josh Gibson was that he was this nearly 800 home run hitter, and we're not going to see that.
Yeah.
But I understand why.
Right. But then you can still recognize that in the history of the game. You can still say that. Like, in his career, he could have hit close to 800 home runs, but stats just weren't verified back then. Like, you can still appreciate the history of it.
I would love to see MLB come back and revise the stats. Not just revise the stats, but add exhibition stats. So maybe Josh Gibson in the history books gets credit for 238, but maybe you can show from all these exhibition games that he had the 800. Like, maybe you can tell the whole story of Josh Gibson. You don't have to give him credit for it in the record books,
right?
But at least give him. It's almost like tracking spring training stats. They don't count for anything, but you can look back and say, hey, a guy in his career had this many spring training home runs, because we keep stats for everything.
So same thing with postseason stats, which blows my mind. Right. Like, career home run totals don't count. Like, postseason home runs don't count to your career totals, which is nuts to me. Like it's just mind blowing. That's like, all right, well, that's still your career. Like, you're still putting up home runs in the postseason, but they don't count towards your career home run total.
Good point. Weird. Postseason too, all-star games. Like, these guys have played a lot more games than their stat line says. So I'd love to see him at some point in time come back and tell more of the Negro League story through stats, but I understand how they got to where they got to.
Yeah.
I still believe MLB has to come back and right the wrong of not making this a big event and not doing a big unveiling and not educating baseball fans on the Negro Leagues, not telling the story of the leagues, of the players, of what happened.
Yeah.
By just making the announcement, they're doing such a massive injustice to these players in these leagues by just saying, hey, look what we did. But, like, give us more. Tell us why.
Right.
Celebrate this moment.
Yeah.
Don't just fire off a press release and check the box that you did it.
Yeah. So as you know, I play MLB The Show like yearly, religiously. This year and last year they released Negro League storylines, and they have like you can go through and play specific moments of these guys' career. And in between each moment that you play or you try to recreate, there's a historian that sits and tells the story of like the game, the guy's career, like. And it's really cool. Like I sit there and like almost watch it like a movie. Like it's really cool. It's interesting to me. Being the baseball nerd that I am, I love all that stuff. I love the history of the game. It's about time that MLB, recognize these guys as equals. It's the first correct step in that process.
Yeah, and but admittedly, it's a difficult step. I still struggle.
For sure.
I still struggle with the fact that many of the the records that I've known and come to appreciate aren't the records anymore. Right. Josh Gibson's going to hold a lot of records now. Other players are going to hold some records that were previously held by other players that I considered to be, kind of on the Mount Rushmore of baseball, that maybe they still are, but it causes the fans to kind of have to look back, and history's changed. And it's hard to wrap your brain around the fact that everything you thought you knew, you don't know anymore. And you've got to get used to what's now current.
Yeah, we've talked about like when Ty Cobb hit 466 or whatever in that single season. Like these guys were playing on fields that had molehills going across the infield. Like they weren't playing on the carpets that these guys play on now. No, so like how many of those hard ground balls that Cobb hit a molehill and went, I just sound real Southern right there, but
yeah, wicked bad.
It's so bad. Hit a molehill and ended up in the outfield for a base hit. Like where in today's game it's just a routine ground ball to second. Like we just don't know.
Yep, and you have to appreciate and respect the fact that the eras were different and the game was different. And look at a guy like Ty Cobb from his era. Most of those guys worked in the off season because they didn't get paid anything.
Right.
These players today, they do baseball all the time. They've got strength and conditioning people, nutritionists. They got people that work on their mental makeup. Like they're flying chartered flights, staying in great hotels. Like these guys in the old days were getting paid nothing. They were eating crap. There was no workout.
On a bus,
on a bus or a train, staying in crap hotels with bats that were effectively nothing more than like a tree branch. And it's not the same. But as the game has evolved, the game has changed. And as fans, you have to be able to reflect that to a certain extent. And that's why, as much as people hate war to me is the only thing I can use to really benchmark a player against somebody from another era. It tells me where you stood versus your peer group. Now, is it perfect? No. But how else do you compare Ty Cobb to Ken Griffey Jr.? I don't know. There's no good way. The game was different. Nobody hit like Ken Griffey Jr. back then, just like nobody hits like Ty Cobb today.
Yeah.
And I think the game has changed.
I think it's important to know that or learn that fans need to evolve too. MLB is trying to evolve, and it does it naturally. Like you said, over the eras, baseball evolves. And fans just seem to be stuck in the past. Like baseball is an old person's game, right? Old fans' games. Like what's the average fan age? It's our age and above. Like that's just how it is. And people just don't evolve to anything new that involves baseball, and it's changed. Like keep it pure, keep baseball pure. And I understand that. Like to an extent, like yes, we need to keep baseball. And there are rule changes aside, like I think they've done a good job evolving with what needs to be addressed at the major league level. But fans aren't evolving with the game, which is also an issue in itself.
No, it's true. And we was it a few weeks ago now, we had a discussion about, when do past records and all that begin to not matter.
And championships,
Right. And that's one of the beauties of baseball is the fact that there are still Yankees fans that walk around the street screaming 27 rings, and anybody that's under the age of 30 has been alive for one of them. But they're still going to chant 27 rings. Yeah. Most of them were before the 1950s, and there was no free agency, and there's all kinds of reasons why it worked that way. But 27 rings in your history. Yeah. You've got 27 championships, but if you're under the age of 30, you've only been alive for one of them. Or two of them, maybe. but you haven't seen them all. Right. And, thankfully for Red Sox fans, we've seen 4 recently, but still, like, that history carries on, and it carries generation to generation. Does it become less relevant as time goes on? Sure. But it doesn't change the fact that it happened.
Right. Exactly. So just to put a bow on the whole thing, I'm glad that they're moving in this direction, and these players are getting the recognition they deserve, because yes, people knew of these guys, Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, and like you said, they have that aura around them. But now this is like officially, like, these guys were top of their class when they were playing, and I love it. I'm all about it.
Yeah, and what I would say is I'm all for the change. I wish MLB did a better job making this a big event and making it helping the fans understand it. But I will say, if you're somebody like us that kind of struggles with the idea of what does this mean and how did it come to be and all that, like, you're not alone. A lot of us are having the same kind of feeling of, do I like it? Do I not? I don't know.
Yeah.
They're the people that just outright hate it, the people that think it's the greatest thing ever. But it's okay to have the conversation about, is this the way to handle it? Were the leagues the same? What was the competition level like? I mean, me and Sean debated that in circles for like an hour and a half after it came out, because it's a fair question to ask. And these are the conversations that should be had. It shouldn't be a matter of it's a lesser league and blah, blah, blah. No, like, the conversation's worth having. The debate is what makes this thing so great, but it's got to be a debate that's intelligent with context, not a debate of just, I don't like it because it's different.
Yeah. And it's also, the stats that they're including are only from 1920 to 1948. So anything before that and anything after that doesn't matter. So, like, yeah, it's a 30-year window-ish, but it's still not the entire history that they're throwing in the MLB record books. So I think a lot of the, outrage, for lack of a better word, was, like you said, how they delivered it. Like, yes, it was leaked, but it was just like, here, digest this, like, chew on this cud for a little bit. Let's see how you guys react to it.
Yeah, we're going to rewrite history. Boom. What do you think?
Yeah, right.
It's like, what?
Yeah, it's like a leak they put out on purpose, but which I think you said, right? It's like almost like they do this on purpose just to get a feel for what how the fans are going to react.
Yeah, it was either me or Sean. It might have been Sean. I just made the comment of, it feels like MLB leaked this just to, like, take the temperature of the fan base before they actually make the big announcement. But there's really been no big announcement to follow, so it looks like that really was all there's going to be.
Crazy, but typical MLB fashion. But
I just feel like they did everybody a disservice by not making this a bigger deal.
Agree. And maybe they will. Maybe the Rickwood games is where it kind of, like, blows up and they make a big deal of it, because they have the stage to do it there. Because nationally, a lot of people are going to be tuning in for that.
So. Well, yeah, this has gotten people's attention. That game on the 20th is probably going to have some decent ratings because people are going to be tuning in to know what's happening.
Mm-hmm. For sure. All right. Let's take a break. We're going to do some MLB trivia. Hopefully there's no grammatical errors in there. If there is, I'll hear about it this week. So here we go, Harrison. Kind of all over the place with trivia this week, so stick with me.
I'll do what I can.
All right. Name the 4 retired pitchers that have more than 3,000 Ks and less than 1,000 walks.
Boy, that's a tough one. Because immediately, like, Nolan Ryan's out. Yeah. Because that dude walked a lot of guys. Randy Johnson's out.
Yep.
I'm gonna go Maddox.
Maddox is on the list. You would never believe what his career walk total is.
Oh God, it's got to be like 300 or 400. Like, it's got to be some stupidly low number.
It's 999.
Oh, is it really?
He barely gets in.
Oh man. All right. So Maddox, Cy Young.
No.
Walter Johnson.
Nope.
Oh,
you're too old.
Oh, too far back. Okay.
Yeah. You got
Seaver?
Nope.
Probably not Koufax.
Nope. You have a Cubs pitcher in there, a pretty well-known Cubs pitcher from, like, probably 60s, 80s.
Cubs pitcher.
Starter.
I wasn't thinking about the Cubs. So I got Maddox so far.
Yep. Another guy in his era pitched for the Phillies, Diamondbacks, Red Sox.
Schilling?
Schilling is on the list.
Yeah, that's right. He didn't walk a lot of guys. Yeah. All right.
No. And then Expos and Red Sox. I mean, best
Pedro.
Pedro. And then the fourth guy is Fergie Jenkins.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, look at the walk numbers for Schilling and Pedro. Holy cow.
I saw that and I was like, holy
I know
smokes.
Schilling didn't walk a lot of guys. I kind of forget Kurt Schilling got to 3,000 Ks. He just barely got there, but he got there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Pretty insane right there. So
wow, Maddox, Schilling, Pedro. I mean, that was like our childhood right there.
Yep. Yeah, and then Fergie Jenkins is in there. So
wow, that's a pretty select company right there. But yeah, 990. I figured Maddox would be lower than that, but he pitched for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys are watching and you want to throw the answers in the chat, you are more than welcome to help Harrison out here. So
yeah, help me out. Usually I've got Sean to work with, so I'm flying solo tonight.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Here is the next one. Who was the last MVP that did not make an All-Star appearance that same year?
Oh, I heard somebody mention this not that long ago, and I can't remember who it was.
So the background is also giving you a hint here. It kind of gives you, I mean, all the teams are red and blue, so maybe not that much of a hint.
Yeah.
But
so league MVP that did not make an All-Star appearance.
That same year, yeah.
What era? Like our era or before?
Our era, for
our
sure.
Our era, okay.
Yeah, because it's the last one to do it.
Oh, last one. Okay, last one to do it. Boy, so let's go back through the MVPs.
You got to go back to 2007. I'll even give you the year.
Well, 2008 in the American League, 2007. Okay. Boy, oh boy.
Shortstop.
Shortstop.
Yeah. NL East.
Glove guy or bat or hitter?
He was both. NL East. NL East shortstop, 2007.
Jimmy Rollins?
Jimmy Rollins.
Okay.
Yeah, Jimmy Rollins, 2007.
Man, I would not have pegged him. He had a massive season that year too, but he had a big second half.
And then Justin Morneau did it for the Twins in 2006, the year before.
Oh no kidding. Okay.
Yeah. So
well, yeah, but Morneau had like a crazy sneaky second half and carried that team to the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. So
J-Roll, okay. That dude was fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Who is the only player to win a batting title in 3 different decades?
Batting title.
Let's
see. Carew?
Nope. Again, the background gives you a hint.
Yeah, I'm looking at the color going. In 3 different decades. That's like a Marlins color.
No, it should be the team that you're watching a lot this year.
Yep. Brett?
Yeah, George Brett. Good. 76, 333, 1983, 90, 1990, 329. Now,
yeah, I'm kind of working down like high average guys in my head. I'm like, okay, like let's go Carew, Gwynn. I'm working my way to the next guys on that list.
Okay, I might get flack for this one because a lot of people say that 1980 is part of the 1970s decade because there's no year 0. But officially in the MLB records, it says this counts as 3 separate decades. So just throwing that out there. You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, if it's an 80, I considered it in the 80s, but
I'm with you. Okay.
Yep.
All right. This one, you got to turn back the clock a little bit. Who's the youngest player to win a batting title?
Boy, oh boy.
And he was 20 years old when he did this.
Jeez.
Famous Tiger. Like one of the all-time great Tigers.
Oh, Trammell?
Nope, before him.
Oh, before him. Okay. Like how far before him? How far back we going?
Probably 50s, 60s.
Oh, okay.
It's also a type of battery. His name is like a type of battery.
Okay. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm blanking on like really good Tigers hitters. That's a sad statement.
Righty power bat. Outfielder. It is
I'm gonna kick myself. Yeah, K-Line. I was like, I cannot think of his name.
Yeah, alkaline battery. That's how I remember him.
Yep. Now I got it.
Yeah, 340 in 1955. He was 20 years old.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Remember the old home run derby show where like they'd go head to head? Pretty sure K-Line was on it a bunch and hit a boatload of home runs on it.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. So
I could not think of his name.
All right, so here we go. Starting in the 1920s to the 2010s, we're going to go one decade at a time. You got to give me the player that hit the most home runs for that decade. So who hit the most home runs in the 1920s?
It's got to be Ruth, right?
It's Ruth. Yep, 467. Yep. Who hit the most home runs in the 1930s?
Is it still Ruth?
Not Ruth.
No, he tapered off early on. Mantle?
No, that's too early.
Too early. Yeah, too early. Decade too early.
Red Sox, Athletics.
In the 30s.
Yeah. He's like one of the lesser known power hitters for that time, but still put up ridiculous numbers.
Oh, Red Sox and Athletics, huh?
Yeah.
Fox? No, it's
it is.
Is it?
Jimmy
Okay.
Fox. Yeah,
I felt like I was too early on Jimmy Fox.
Yeah, Jimmy Fox, 415.
Double X. Yep.
Okay. 1940s.
Mantle?
Nope. Come on,
still too early.
Kind of an easy one here.
I know.
Another Red Sox.
Oh, Teddy Ballgame.
Yeah, Ted Williams, 234.
That's a really low number, though.
It is, but I think it's just how like they spanned, the player's career spanned during that time. Okay. 1950s. These are all guys you should know. I'm just throwing that out there too.
Now that I'm into the 50s.
Hall of Fame outfielder, Brooklyn Dodgers. Yeah, he had it. Jimmy Fox, he had it.
Oh yeah. You had it with Fox.
Yeah.
Brooklyn Dodgers in the 50s. Why am I not picking that one up?
His first name is also like a Britain royal title. Like the blank of Edinburgh or
Duke Snyder.
Yeah, Duke Snyder. Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm blanking on 326. Yeah. That's also not a super high number for a decade.
No. Okay, 1960s.
60s. So who was hitting bombs in the 60s? Now you start to get into like the days of like the Big Red Machine and that whole group.
Yep. So it's in the Central there, but the AL Central.
Oh, okay. Wrong Central. All right. So
third baseman.
Back in that time.
For the Twinkies.
In the 60s.
Twins power hitting third baseman there. I think they're all-time home run team leader there.
Yeah, and I am not.
I actually had him on the picture trivia once.
Oh, did you really?
Mm-hmm.
Twins power hitting third baseman. This one's gonna bother me.
Yeah, this one should have been a layup for you. This is
Killebrew. Of course.
So 393 during that time. It's pretty crazy.
That's a pretty good number.
Okay. The 70s. This one is also kind of a low home run total, but I think you could get this one. Power hitting player for the Pirates, not Clemente.
So who else in that outfield? Stargell.
It was Stargell. Okay. Willie Stargell. Yep. Willie Stargell, 296. Okay. 1980s.
This is when the game starts to change. Now you start to see a lot more power hitting.
Yep.
So 80s, it's too early for like McGuire and Canseco. They were late 80s, but they hit a bunch of bombs. You had Schmidt was gone by then.
Nope, that is.
Was it? Schmidt. Okay. I thought he was gone early in the 80s.
Yep, 313.
Yep.
Which, I mean, is lower for him because...
It is, but that was also the tail end of his career.
Right. So 313 for Mike Schmidt in the 80s. Okay, so here we go.
He only played like a handful of seasons in the 80s, didn't he?
I think so. I don't know exactly how many, but I mean, still enough to hit 313 home runs.
The guy hit a ridiculous number of home runs.
Yeah. All right. Who hit the most home runs in the 90s?
I mean, based on the summer of 98, I got to say McGuire.
It is McGuire. Yep. 404.
Yeah, he hits freaking 70 of them in 98.
Yeah. Crazy. Who hit the most in the 2000s?
A-Rod?
A-Rod. Nice job. 435. And then the 2010s.
Boy, there's a lot of guys that could be in that category.
It's one guy who just recently retired, like last year.
Pujols?
No, which was shocking to me, to be completely honest.
That he had the most home runs in the 2010s?
Yeah, that it wasn't Pujols.
Oh, Miggy?
No, not Miggy. Played for a whole bunch of teams, but mostly known for the Rangers and the Mariners.
Rangers and Mariners. That's an interesting combo.
Not Beltre.
Oh, yeah, Beltre would have been. That's the only guy I could think of that had that combo.
I mean, this guy played everywhere. Nationals, played for the Padres there towards the tail end.
Nelson Cruz.
Nelson Cruz, yeah. Yeah,
the ultimate journeyman, but the dude hit 30, 40 home runs everywhere he went.
Yep, 346.
Jeez, that's amazing that a guy like Nelson Cruz has the most home runs in a decade.
Yeah. So, again, it all depends on when they started their career and how they span that full decade and all of that stuff. So there's a lot of things that go into
I mean,
that.
those were Cruz's prime home run years.
Yeah. So, pretty crazy. But yeah, just had those for today.
That's cool. Some of those, like Killebrew, that one hurts. I feel I definitely should have gotten Killebrew, but like some of those names, it's surprising to see the home run totals.
I did that one because I mean they're all well-known names. So I was like, all right, I think we could muscle through this one. It would be all right. But
yep. Yeah, no, that was cool. It was fun.
Yeah. So all right. A couple things heading home here.
Well, real quick, Nick, before we go over we had last week's poll question.
Yeah, here we go. So I got to dig it up here, but it was should MLB bring ABS into the MLB next year?
If you're not familiar with this, if you're not familiar with ABS, this is the system literally in the minor leagues where the pitcher, the catcher, the hitter can literally just tap their helmet and or hat and ask for the umpire, ask for electronic review. Nick put a video up of it live at whatever game you were at a couple weeks ago.
Durham Bulls.
On the Durham Bulls game on our Facebook page, and literally the whole process took like less than 10 seconds. They got the call right and they moved on.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
So what happens is each team gets 3 challenges during the game. If you're right on your challenge, you retain it. If you're wrong, you lose it. So if you're wrong 3 times, you're done with challenges for the game. So it doesn't add another 45 minutes onto the game. Like you're not challenging every pitch.
You're not challenging a 1-0 fastball. Like you're challenging pitches worth challenging.
Right. So we did have, it was pretty split right down the middle here. So we got 14 yes, 13 no.
Wow.
So pretty split. What's your take on it?
I mean, if they're not gonna do anything to change the umpires or to improve that, then that you owe it to the players to have a backup. We'll pick on Angel Hernandez for a minute, although he just retired. Wyatt Langford takes 3 straight sliders, 5-6 inches off the plate, gets rung up. ABS would have fixed at least the last one to give the kid a chance to hit, but effectively Angel Hernandez took the bat out of his hand.
Yeah.
Like if you're not going to safeguard a player from getting completely robbed of a bat by holding these guys to a higher standard, ranking them and things like that, then you owe them a backup plan to safeguard them from getting absolutely hosed. Because too many times and I'm not even saying like you miss a ball an inch off the plate. Yeah. Okay. That's easy to miss, but 5 or 6 inches off the plate is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like you need to give these guys a backup to save themselves and save their at bat. That's why I think MLB needs to bring this in.
Yeah, that's me. It's not the borderline ones because listen, we've seen enough baseball where umpires are consistently, 1 to 2 inches off the plate. They're given that call. Okay, batters make that adjustment. It's the egregious ones, like you just said. You give me 6 to 8 inches off the plate being called a strike. Like, come on, dude.
Come on.
Or like I brought it up a couple weeks ago, and the first pitch of the ball game is right down the middle for ball one. Like, okay, dude, that's a challenge. That's a strike. Like
Max Fried, 3-2 fastball down the middle, called ball 4. He unraveled after that. Bases loaded, and his whole outing was blown.
His whole season's blown. But
now it's a different story. But you have to put a safeguard in place if you're not going to do anything to improve the umpires. You owe the players a plan B to make sure they're protected.
Now, Manfred did come out and say that it's not going to be ready for 2025.
They're claiming there's still issues with it they've got to work out, which I don't know what, because the minor league seems to love it. But
yeah, and honestly, it doesn't take away from the game. If anything, like more people are glued to it because they're like, "Oh, what is it? What is it? Oh, it's a ball, right?" And it's quick. It's like the umpire stands up, mic on, batter's challenging the pitch of a strike. They turn to the jumbotron. Okay, call stands. Boom,
yeah, it basically plays like the K-zone colored view that we see in the replay anyways, and then they call it.
Yeah, it's literally a 7 to 8 second process. Like, it was so fast that I couldn't even get, if you've seen the clip that I posted on Instagram, I couldn't even get my phone up fast enough. And I was ready to take a video. Like, I had my camera app open with my my thumb on the video, and I couldn't even get it up fast enough to and I'm, obviously paying attention to the game. So it's like, I couldn't get it up fast enough. But it's not a fast process. And like you said, it needs
it's not a slow process. You mean it is a fast process.
Right. Sorry. Yeah. And it needs to be in there to protect both sides of the ball, pitchers and batters. Because like you said, Max Fried ended up throwing another 26 pitches to get himself out of that inning when he should have been out of it, and only goes 2/3 of an inning.
And the whole start gets blown up now. His stats, and the other part of it too is a lot of these guys have incentives built into their contracts to hit certain thresholds, and losing an at bat or losing, getting knocked up to start early or seeing your ERA float, it starts to cost these guys money too.
Yeah, and I was talking to the gym teacher at my school, Josh Trotter. We were talking about how tennis has the live, immediate, like we have the technology for that. Why not use it?
Yep.
Like, and like I said, it's not the borderline pitches that I want this for. It's the egregious ones. And I understand if we put it in, you're gonna have borderline pitches challenged. That's just how it is, right?
Yeah, I mean. And honestly, one of my favorite clips of all time is Kyle Schwarber getting rung up by Angel Hernandez and him losing his mind.
It's so great.
But if you look at that pitch, it is literally right on. It's just a hair off the corner of the plate. I'm not sympathetic to a guy who gets called out on strikes on a ball that is shadowing the black.
Right.
We were always taught if it's close, put the bat out. Don't wait for the umpire to save you. The problem with major league hitters is that these guys are expecting the umpire to call everything 100% right every single time.
Right.
They're not protecting themselves. So I'm not sympathetic to a guy who gets rung up on a call that shadows the black. But a guy like Wyatt Langford who takes a slider 6 inches off the plate, yeah, that's ridiculous.
All three were 6 inches.
Yeah, all three of them, right.
But, with the Schwarber at bat, I believe it might have been his. It wasn't even the strike 3 call that he was fired up about. It was probably the strike 2 or strike 1 that already put him in that hole. Where it's just that was just the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, I just referenced that pitch because it's the clearest one to see.
Exactly. But it's dude, all 3 of those pitches were not strikes, and you're ringing me up.
Yeah,
that's what we need out of the game. That's not good for the game.
No, no, you can't. You cannot have at bats like Wyatt Langford's or, Judge's the other day was pretty questionable too. But there's some just absolutely egregious calls, and I love to go to Umpire Auditor each week because they do the highlight of the 10 worst calls each week.
Yeah.
And I share them to our Facebook page. Some of those are they're so bad. These are pitches it's a slider that was off the plate to start, finished off the plate, and still called a strike. It was never on the plate. There was never any doubt that pitch was going to be a ball, and it still gets called a strike.
And I have no problems with umpires missing calls. Listen, it's going to happen. I have more respect for the umpire. I don't know if you ever saw it, but Nick Pivetta threw a pitch. Umpire missed it. And when the inning was over, the umpire met Pivetta at the mound and put his hand on his back, and he goes, "Hey, dude, I'm sorry, I missed that." Like, he took ownership for saying he missed it. Like, and I think as fans, that's all we're asking for is accountability. Like, hey, dude, it was right down the middle. I was, thinking about dinner tonight. I just completely missed it. Like, it happens. It really does.
Yeah, and we
just be accountable for it.
Yeah, and we've never asked the umpires to be 100% on the show ever.
No,
I do not expect them to be 100%. And honestly, like, if they were 100%, then you might as well just put robot umps back there. Like, that's right. The human element is part of what makes baseball kind of unpredictable. But some of these calls are just so egregious that there has to be a way to fix it.
Right.
And we're not saying to put this in because you want to replace the umpires. We're saying to put this in so you can fix the bad mistake when it happens. That's all.
Right. And we can never go to strict robo umps.
No.
There's which we're going to talk about in a little bit. There's too much other things that happens on a baseball field that can't be called by robots.
Yeah, can't be done.
But balls and strikes is something that we can fine tune. Well, I guess not even fine tune, just fix the egregious ones, I guess is what I'm saying.
Just put something in place so when there's a really bad call made, it can be fixed. Because even if the bad call is made and the umpire goes, "Yeah, I screwed up," you can't change the call. It's over.
Right.
This gives you an opportunity to say, "Yeah, that was a miss. Let's check it and fix it."
Yeah, 1,000%. So, well, since we're kind of talking about that, let's head home and talk about the Juan Soto interference at second base last week. So, we were talking about the Gunnar Henderson and Andrew Vaughn interference last week, and we're like, we're never going to see a play like this again. Well, in sure baseball style and baseball gods, they provide us with pretty much the same exact scenario. The timing of the game was different, but we have first and second. Infield fly was called again, right? I believe
it was. Yep.
And Juan Soto is trying to get back to second base. However, the ball was legit just to the right of second base, so in between second and third, like in the base path. So Soto's trying to like get back to second so he doesn't get forced out. And as he's trying to avoid the contact, but he still has to get his right foot into the base, and he makes contact with a fielder and is called out for interference.
Yep.
And it's just like, I mean, is it interference? I guess. But what the hell is Juan Soto supposed to do in that? Is that just one of those baseball fluky plays? Was the call wrong? Like, how would you have called that play? Like a no call? I don't know. Like it's so unique because like Soto did try to avoid the contact. He tried to sneak his leg back in there, and he only went to the one spot that he could really go in order for him not to be out from being forced out after the catch. So like, I don't know.
Yeah. So I've never seen a weirder situation than a infield fly rule called literally with the guy standing like a foot away from second base. So weird to begin with, weird play to begin with. But if you watch the play, Juan Soto's kind of coming back. He's very clearly watching the defender, trying to figure out where he's going to go. The shortstop, was it Rengifo who was playing?
Yeah, it might have been him.
I forget who it was, but they stepped forward. So Juan Soto very quickly tries to sneak in behind him, and then he drifts backwards into Juan Soto and like flips over his leg, and that's when the whole play goes sideways. But I think Soto did the right thing. He waited to see where he was going, then tried to go around the side he thought was safe. Player stepped forward, he goes behind him, player drifts back, and then that's when the whole play dissolves. But there's really nothing else Soto can do other than wait for this guy to make the catch and then try to like sneak in some area that's open. But the runner has to be given second base. Like, if that ball was hit directly on top of second base, you can't tell Juan Soto to get off of second base to let the guy catch it. Well, like at some point, you got to give the runner the base.
Right. That's my other question. Like if Juan Soto's standing in the middle of the base and the fielder's going over to make that catch and it takes him over second base, is it still interference?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I've never seen it, but at some point, you got to give the runner the base. And in my mind, if I was an umpire, what I saw was Juan Soto made the best effort he could to not interfere with the play. The player changed directions at the last minute, which Soto couldn't predict, and he crashed into him. In my mind, that's not interference. That is inadvertent contact, And I know that the rule says doesn't matter if it's inadvertent or not, it's interference. So I guess by definition, maybe it's interference. But Juan Soto did everything he possibly could have done to not interfere with that play and still interfered with that play out of nothing he did.
Right. And Boone gets ejected again, but I think I would have been with him. I would have lost my mind. What is he supposed to do?
And that was his argument. If you read his lips, he's literally asking, what is he supposed to do? Like you have to give him the base.
Right.
And you can see Boone ask 2 or 3 times, what is he supposed to do? Right. And I don't know. Like I've never seen a call like that where the ball was so close to the base. I don't know. I mean, to the point we just said, like if the ball's hit right on top of second base, Soto can't move. So it's going to be interference. I don't know how you call that one.
Yeah. And I'm not razzing the umpires here either.
No, like I was genuinely confused by the call because in my mind, I don't know what else Soto could have done. Could he have possibly like gone around the base and stood on the second base side of it? Sure.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, holy cow, like there's not much more he could have done.
No. And like I said, like as an umpire, I don't know. Like I can't make fun of them for making that call because technically like it was, and he was off the base, but like Soto also didn't have a lane to get back. So like it's such an outlier and such a unique situation. It's like, what do you do?
Yeah. Like I don't view this
you can't
as like
overturn
an umpire,
it, right?
No, you can't. Like I don't view this as an umpire blown call. I view this as like genuinely a question people should have, which is, what do you do?
Right.
I mean, the umpires got together and it was like, yeah, it's interference. He got in his way. And the way the rule is written, if you interfere, period. End of story. So maybe based on the letter of the law, that was the right call. But like the intent of the rule was not to call that interference.
Right.
I mean, you have to let the runner have the base.
It was so unique. I just was like,
it was bizarre. I've never seen an infield fly ball that was hit like so close to a base where there was a runner, and it was weird. Never seen it in all the years of watching baseball and playing baseball. Never seen that situation.
It's just so funny because we're just like when we were talking about the Gunnar Henderson and Andrew Vaughn one, and we're like, oh, we're never going to see this again.
Right.
Like two nights later, we see almost the exact same thing.
Yeah, I mean, even weirder because it was even closer.
Right.
Like you get a weirder wrinkle to the same play. But another interesting play that happened not in that game, but a couple nights before that was runners at first and second. It's the Yankees again. Runners at first and second. I forget who the batter was. Batter hit the ground ball to shortstop. Anthony Rizzo is the runner at second base. He takes off for third, slows down, kicks the ball, and is therefore called out. And people in baseball are like, what is he doing? He's an idiot. You know, he ran into an out. No. What he did was he prevented the double play.
Right. Smart.
Which was brilliant. Because if you think about it, first and second, ground, there's either no outs or one out. First and second, ground ball to the shortstop. He's going to go to second. They're going to go to first, turn 2. Instead, Rizzo gets in the way. He's the only guy that gets out in that case.
Right.
The hitter gets credit. The hitter gets credit for a hit. And now you got runners in first and second with 2 outs instead of an inning-ending double play.
Right.
Which is incredibly smart by Rizzo. And a lot of people in baseball were talking about the fact that it was such a dumb play. Then some people like AJ Przinsky on his podcast goes, no. You all need to appreciate what he just did.
Yeah.
And I don't know why more players don't do it. Because Pierzynski did that a number of times in his career, and people just thought he was being a jerk. Right. But he's like, no, I was stopping the double play.
Yep.
I'm giving myself up to prevent 2 outs.
Right.
That's a smart play. That's a smart baseball play.
And you don't lose anything. Yeah, you lose an out, but you still have a runner in scoring position instead of going back to the field.
Because the other 2 runners aren't affected. So they just boop. They move. You got first and second again. It's with 1 out. Rizzo's off the field, but you still got the same situation. But instead of an inning-ending double play, you've now got a chance to keep that inning going.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really smart play by Rizzo. It was kind of a loophole that a lot of players don't think about. You know, a lot of players came to his rescue saying that was really smart. And when fans were thinking he did something so dumb, but it was cool to see because when it first happened, I'm like, what is he doing? Right. And then I was like, oh, I get it. Okay. Yeah. That was smart because he had he had a runner behind him.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It's not an interference call that you necessarily see very often.
Yeah. And I love all those like smart IQ baseball plays. Like that's what makes baseball so interesting to me is like every game you watch, you see something new that you've never seen before. And it's like something like that is just like so smart. It's so immediate. It's just like, man, that was
Javi
great.
Baez running back to home plate and letting the letting that play just implode.
I mean, I remember doing that. I did that in men's league. I was coming right off knee surgery, and I was slower than, I mean, I was slow anyways. But
so you weren't exactly a burner back in the day.
No, I hit a little dribbler up the first baseline, and I had runners on first and second, and I stopped and started running backwards, and the other team just lost their mind. They're like, he can't do that, and I go, do it. I'm in the base path. Like, it
do
doesn't
whatever
matter.
I want. Could lay down if I wanted.
Right. And but I got my runners to second and third. It acted like a sacrifice bunt. So, but it was just funny that people were just losing their minds. But I love seeing little plays like that, like you've never seen before. You're like, that's awesome.
Yeah, just really smart baseball players making a call on the field.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, everything in baseball is a split-second decision too.
It is,
right? Just to have that, like, right off the top of your head, to have quick access to be like, yeah, I'm just going to choke the engine and take this off the ankle so my runners are safe. Like, that's a smart baseball play. So
very.
Excuse me.
And I did put a link in the chat to the whole Juan Soto thing. If you haven't seen it, you can go there, read about it, and actually watch the clip. But it was a wild play. I don't know how you handle that one.
I don't either. It was interesting for sure. But all right, let's get into the whole Jorge Lopez fiasco here with the Mets. So it is the Mets against, was it the Dodgers? I think it was the Dodgers, because Jorge Lopez throws a pitch. Freddie Freeman comes and checks the swing. They appeal it to third.
Yeah, he'd given up a home run to Ohtani like a pitch or two before.
Yeah, and then the third base umpire says he doesn't go. Jorge Lopez has some choice words for him. He gets ejected.
Well, that third base umpire was looking for a fight. His response was aggressive.
It was pretty aggressive.
It was aggressive.
So Lopez untucks his jersey, hurls his glove into the stands, leaves the clubhouse. The Mets don't even wait for the game to end pretty much, and they DFA him. Yep. I mean, it was quick.
He was DFA'd like as soon as the game ended, they DFA'd him.
And then I don't have the exact quotes, but it was something along the line like, I'm the worst teammate on the worst team, was what was reported.
Yeah.
Now, Jorge Lopez, English is his second language. And I'm not trying to make excuses for the guy, because he did go fly off the handle. He did.
His reaction on the field was a little ridiculous, but it wasn't like, we're going to cut you ridiculous.
Yeah. We've seen worse behavior on a baseball field for sure. If a player does say that, I'm the worst player on the worst team, okay, you're not fitting our culture. I get that. But there was a lot of other clarifying statements that were confusing to me that came after. Oh, what he really meant was this. What he, didn't mean to say was this. And I was kind of lost on the whole thing, to be completely honest.
Yeah. Yeah. So the sequence of events for Lopez. So he pitches, home run to Ohtani, the check swing to Freeman, gets argued, the umpire gets thrown out, untucks a shirt, throws the glove in, goes down to the clubhouse, chills out a little bit, gets all changed and ready. Game ends, media comes in, and immediately they go to him because, of course, why wouldn't you?
Right.
And so the Mets, he sometimes has an interpreter with him. He did not have an interpreter with him. His interpreter was unavailable. So the Mets left him in front of a whole bunch of media asking him questions. And he said something about the worst, and his English is not great. Again, second language, his English he's not easy to understand. And he said something that sounded like worst teammate or worst team. And they couldn't really tell. So I asked him again, are you saying you're on the worst team? And he was like, well, yeah. And I don't think he knew what he was saying, because what the media reported was that he said he was the worst teammate on the worst team. It sounded like what he was trying to say was, I'm the worst teammate because I made the team look bad, is right. What I think he was trying to say. Because that was what they were getting at. How do you feel about the response? Was it too much? Blah, blah, blah. They were kind of digging into what he did. And he was basically saying, I made myself look like a fool. And yeah, I was frustrated. Come to find out, on top of this, Jorge Lopez has a son, an 11-year-old son who suffers from this really rare genetic disorder, who's awaiting a transplant. The guy's personal life is a wreck.
Yeah. So
probably not thinking the straightest. And the Mets hung him out there with no interpreter. So as soon as they heard him say that, and the media published the quick, all the quick shots on social media, they DFA'd him for thinking he said he was the worst player with the worst teammate on the worst team. I don't think that's what he was saying. Most people don't think that's what he was saying.
Right.
The Mets reacted to it, and the poor guy is gone. I really think the Mets did him a disservice by leaving him out there. They should have kept him from the media, knowing his personal situation, knowing what just happened. They should have sat him in the manager's office and said, "You're going to hide for the evening. You're not available to the media, but we need to talk about what just happened."
Right.
And I think the Mets should have handled that internally. Instead, they hung this guy out to dry in front of the media, no interpreter, with not great English, and what he said and what was reported, I do not think are the same. And the dude got DFA'd for it, which is a shame because it shouldn't have come to that.
No. And that's the manager's job. That's the general manager's job to kind of read the team and be like, yo, like this guy is having a lot of issues. And listen, we all want to say that when we go to work, we leave our personal issues at the door. We're all human. That doesn't happen.
Nobody does that.
That doesn't happen. Like, we're all human. We get it. Like, your emotions are going to carry over.
Yep.
They just are. And if you have the pulse of your team, you should be able to recognize that, just like you said, and protect your guy.
Yep.
Like, okay, he just gave up a bomb. He just got tossed. We got to do something to protect him. We know that he doesn't speak English very well. And we don't have his interpreter. Like, those are all things as a manager that should have the pulse of your team, that you should be like, all right, like you said, hide in this office. Here's your blanket and pillow. Curl up and take a nap. We'll come get you when they're gone.
Yeah.
Like, and they didn't do that. It's terrible. I hate that for him. But
no, I mean, and a lot of people took shots at him immediately. And Boomer Esiason came back out and apologized the day after when he found out about his son for what he said about Jorge Lopez on the air. And then a lot of people in baseball have come back around saying the organization hung him out to dry. What they did was wrong. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of more inside type people said, yeah, the Mets are a mess. The front office is a mess. The manager sucks. Like, we're a hot mess. And you look at the team, they've lost 7 of their last 10. They're 11 games under 500. They're going nowhere. They're circling the drain again. Is it
again, or is it still?
Maybe still, not again. Still, they haven't left the drain. But like, the roster stinks, the attitude stinks, the manager stinks, the front office stinks. Like, everything Cohen said he was going to do, now he's a few years into this thing, he's not doing. The Mets are still dysfunctional as all get out. They are a terrible organization. They're a terribly run organization, and this continues to be their MO. And players came to his defense, and it didn't matter. The team made the move. They felt justified in doing it. Good for them. I hope they feel good about cutting a guy loose who's got whatever issues he's got going. He hasn't pitched poorly for them.
No.
He just had a rough outing and didn't take it well. And I don't blame him. And people that think that you leave your personal life at home, like you were saying, are full of it. You got a sick kid. My whole life is going to be revolving around that situation. I don't care what anybody says.
1,000%. Especially when you travel as much as these guys and you can't be at home.
Yeah.
It's terrible. I hate that.
It's bad. It's bad. And I think the Mets showed in that situation that they are still a trash bottom of the barrel organization, and they've got a long way to go.
They do. And I think they need to stop trying to buy. I think they need to tear it all down and start from scratch. Like, start building your farm, get the young talent up there. They got that hard reset over there.
That roster has no bright spots. I mean, Lindor, super talented player, but he's streaky as hell. Alonso is who he is. Like, not a very deep roster, not a very talented roster, no leadership on that team.
Brett Beatty sent down again.
This is the same team 3 years ago was crying at their fans. Like, they're booing back at their fans and crying. Like, this organization is still a dumpster fire.
Yeah. Ever since that Javi Baez deal.
Yep. They completely went off the rails.
Brutal.
Off the rails.
Wow. The last thing I have is Jeremiah Estrada for the Padres had a 13K streak in a row. 13 Ks in a row. I don't know if he's still active or not. I don't know if he's been in. I think it was Friday or Saturday. He still had this. It's the most in the expansion era.
That's crazy.
13 Ks in a row. And I saw one report, they were breaking it down. He throws, like, he calls it something funky, but it's the Vulcan changeup. So instead of doing the circle change, he throws like a splitter between his middle finger
changeup. Yeah, that almost like fades like a screwball.
Yep, and that's how Eric Gagne threw his changeup too. Yep. He had a Vulcan change too. So it's not something new.
No, just rare.
What he started doing was literally just throwing fastballs.
Yep.
Like hitters were hitting like 111 off his fastball. So they're like, hey, let's not throw any off-speed pitches anymore. Let's just, gas them up. And that's what he's done, 13 Ks straight. At the time that I wrote this down, I don't know if it's still intact or not, but that's crazy.
Yeah, so to put perspective on that, that's 4 1/3 innings of nothing but strikeouts. That's 4 1/3 innings of nothing but Ks. That means, that is mind-boggling. And then a couple nights later, Nick Pivetta goes out and strikes out 8 in a row for the Red Sox. I think he tied the Red Sox record.
Yeah.
It's some crazy. Unfortunately, Pivetta didn't win that game because nobody for the Red Sox on the Red Sox starting staff wins any games. But
facts.
It's just we've seen some interesting strikeout records set. We've also seen some guys get absolutely torched. No matter how hard they throw. Stanton took 101 mile per hour fastball the other night in San Francisco to right center. It was a missile.
Why the hell does anybody in the MLB throw Giancarlo Stanton a fastball?
And he had
why?
I don't think he'd seen any. And then he gets one from Duvall and he absolutely smoked it.
I would not throw that guy anything straight. Nothing straight.
No. He is Pedro Serrano. Hits straight ball very far, curveball not so much.
Dude, you could just sliders outside corner all day. Anything off speed, he's not going to touch it.
No.
What are we doing?
No.
Don't throw that guy a fastball.
It just shows. It doesn't matter how hard you throw. Good hitters are going to time it, and they're going to hit it.
Yeah.
You still have to locate.
Yeah.
And that's what, Pivetta wasn't throwing 100 when he K'd 8 in a row. None of these guys that have set these strikeout records really are the hardest throwers. They're just locating because that still works.
Yeah. All right. The last thing I have is right now, if you had to pick your MVPs in each league, who are you taking? The AL race is hot. We got Soto, we got Judge, we got Gunnar Henderson, we got Bobby Witt Jr. Those are my top 4. Who are you taking right now?
I mean, to protect myself and pat myself on the back, I should probably take Bobby Witt Jr. because he was my preseason pick. But right now, I would have to take Gunnar Henderson. I mean, what Gunnar Henderson is doing, as good as Soto's been, as good as Judge has been, Gunnar Henderson plays a premier defensive position. No offense to the outfielders, but he plays a premier defensive position at a very high level. He's hitting the crap out of everything. And there have been stretches where he's literally all the Orioles have. That team has been really hot and cold in terms of their lineup, but he's been the one consistent all year. I have to take Gunnar Henderson.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, what he's done this year has been absolutely
ridiculous.
Insane. I mean, I picked Soto in the preseason pick because, and Sean got on me like that, like such a homer pick, blah, 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 like whatever. But I mean, what Bobby Witt's doing too is every time I turn on the Royals, he's going deep and not just deep. He's hitting it like 450. Like he's hitting tanks.
Or when they need a big play, he makes it. When they need a base hit, he gets it. Like when he's working walks late in games to keep rallies going, like he's doing everything. And I actually think in the end, Bobby Witt Jr. probably does win the MVP because I think what he's doing is easier to keep up than what Henderson's doing. But right now, Gunnar is lighting the world on fire.
I'm with you. And like, I hate to say this, but we're just waiting for Aaron Judge to go on the IL, right?
Pretty much.
I mean, like I love the guy. I love the guy as a player, and I hate to say that because I hate the Yankees. But I have to respect a player when
he's great to watch.
He's unreal. But does he stay healthy? We don't know. It's a big question mark. So
I don't know.
It's Soto in a contract year. I said he was going to hit north of 40 home runs at Yankee Stadium. I mean, he's just going to make that short right field porch his bitch, for a lack of a better word.
And the irony of it is, I don't think he's hit a single home run that's needed the short porch. They've all been like second deck and back.
Oh, for sure.
I don't think he's taken advantage of the short porch yet.
No,
because everything he hits is smoked.
But he'll steal, 8 to 10 home runs on a fly, a home run he just misses that squeaks over that fence. But
he is going to get some benefits from that. But
you're right. Everything he's hitting is 500 feet.
Oh, it's crushing everything. And he's now changed his tune too, saying that he would talk contract with the Yankees. I think he's settling in there and liking it. And I think he's looking to see if he can stay.
Listen, if I got Aaron Judge hitting behind me, dude, I think I'm gonna stay too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You got all. Who are you gonna pitch to?
Not only that, but like if you're Juan Soto, like he's proven he wants that kind of pressure and attention and focus, and he wants the media market. He wants to be talked about. What better place to do that than New York City?
Yeah, right.
Like 100%. There's nowhere else you're going to go, maybe except LA, that's going to give you that kind of attention.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. So, I mean, I think it's Gunnar and Soto are the front runners right now. Like it's 1A, 1B.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see if Henderson does keep it up here, but
yeah,
Soto's just a beast, man.
He's a monster.
It's crazy. Absolutely.
And he's settled in so well to that lineup and that organization.
Yeah. How about the NL right now? So we got Betts, Ohtani, Harper, Ozuna, and Contreras are the top odds for NL MVP.
I mean, Mookie Betts sadly has cooled off, although his numbers are still like
ridiculous.
Right. Still video game numbers.
Right.
I mean, I feel like the front runner right now probably has to be Betts, but I would say if I had, based on my opinion, if I had to pick somebody, I'd probably take Ozuna. The Braves have not been the Braves so far this year, especially lately. You've lost Acuna, you lost Strider, you're not getting a ton of offense. And even when Acuna was healthy, he wasn't giving you what he gave you last year. But Ozuna gets every freaking big hit that they need. Yeah. Every time somebody's on base, he brings them in. And I get it. When you got a lot of guys that get on base, you get a lot more opportunities to do that. But I can't remember the last time I saw him not deliver an RBI when they needed one and when there's a guy on base. He's automatic. So I without him, I actually think the Braves are several games worse than they are because he has at times been all they had.
Yeah, 53 runs batted in. Only second behind Jose Ramirez, who we didn't bring up. He's got 57 for the Guardians.
Yeah, that's true.
That Guardians team, man, right now is I wouldn't want to play them.
No, I can honestly say, and I said it in the preseason, I'll say it again now. When you look at that lineup, they're not a scary lineup. But my goodness, they score runs.
Yeah, they are the team. I've mentioned this a couple weeks ago. They are the team we saw not last year, but the year before when they met the Yankees in the ALCS. They just absolutely, just like Sean says all the time, death by 1,000 cuts.
Wear you down.
It is just contact guy after contact guy with an occasional bomb that just kills you.
This is not a team. This is not a team that goes and puts up crooked numbers very often, but they put up numbers constantly.
Yeah. I mean, you got the contact guys at the top with Kwan and Jimenez, and then you got J-Ram following them up, and then Naylor, who's also been putting up some power numbers.
Both Nailers.
Both Nailers. It's crazy, but yeah, 57 RBIs for Ramirez.
That is not a team that when I looked at that lineup in the offseason, I thought was going to be a real offensive threat. Yeah.
Luis Ariz has already got 4 hit games for the Padres since that deal. This is stupid, dude.
It is stupid.
I can't.
And honestly, and you look at the Padres, they've been a little better since he got there. And I think that's making a difference. I think having a consistent guy at the top of the order who hits the ball and gets on base changes that lineup.
Oh, for sure.
And
absolutely.
As bad as Xander Bogaerts has been, you've gotten just enough out of the mix of him, Machado, and Tatis to stay around, because none of them have been great. That team continues to underperform those contracts they gave out. But you're getting just enough from the three of them with a guy like Arias setting the table and Kim that you're surviving.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, real quick, your Cy Young picks as of right now, AL, NL.
AL's hard, man.
I'm going with Seth Lugo.
Well, so, I mean, you could make an argument for Lugo. You could make an argument for George Kirby still. You could make an argument for Corbin Burns, although he hasn't been as good lately. Luis Gil has been ridiculously good.
He had a month, man. That dude had a month.
I mean, If I had to pick a guy right now, I might take Heel because I mean, I watched him pitch against Anaheim the other night, and my goodness, I don't think they hit anything hard. He won a 2-1 ball game. The one hit he gave up, I think, was a home run to Moniak, maybe on just a mistake. He made a single mistake, and that was it. Otherwise, there was very little solid contact. He just dealt.
Yeah, he did all month. I think he got pitcher of the month, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and Emmanuel Class A was your reliever of the month.
Yeah.
Also helping the Indians because it's not like last year he blew like 15 saves. Sorry, Guardians. Not like last year when he blew like 15 saves. Like he's been lights out.
Yeah. I mean, Seth Lugo for the Royals got 9 wins already.
I know. He's been so good. And that was a guy we were hoping the Red Sox make a run for, and the Royals outbid him.
Yeah. Why would we do that?
I don't know.
And then NL, pick rate.
Pause for a second. I think it's safe to say Seth Lugo was the best pitcher signed this offseason.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yeah. You ain't wrong right now.
Snell's going to the IL and has not been effective, and Montgomery's not been effective.
No. But that's what late starts, late signings gets you, unfortunately. And NL right now, I know this guy could possibly end up on the IL because he just took a comebacker off the left hand. But we got Ranger Suarez.
He's been nasty good. He's the clear-cut NL.
Yeah.
Has to be.
Hopefully that...
I didn't hear what happened with the hand. Is it...
He took a comebacker off the hand and left the start early, but I haven't heard like the results of it. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. I saw the injury, but I never heard what came out of it.
Yeah, I haven't either. But yeah. So yeah. So that's all I had for this week. Do you have anything else to kind of throw in there before we wrap up?
I do. So as we've been talking about for weeks, this whole gambling investigation continues to happen, and Ohtani got caught in the net, and then David Fletcher got caught in the net. And now we have, and I'm going to butcher the name because I always do, but I believe it's Tucupita Marcano from the Padres, who was found to be betting on baseball. So Marcano is facing the first lifetime ban MLB has handed out since Pete Rose. So this, as we said, I mean, the Ohtani thing is what it is, and that may never turn into anything. But as they keep investigating, they are going to find other players, and this is going to come back and hurt MLB. And it looks like Marcano may be the first player that gets caught in this web who is looking at a very possible lifetime ban based on what was found.
Honestly,
and there will be more.
Yeah, and I have zero sympathy for this. This isn't a secret. This isn't a secret, guys. Don't gamble. Period.
Yep.
Just don't. You are at the highest level of professional sports. Why would you put yourself in that situation? Just don't. You've seen the repercussions of it. Don't do it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Baseball or not, I don't care. Don't even be like, hey, I bet you can throw this piece of paper in the trash. Like, no, just don't gamble. Don't do it. Just stop.
Well, and it's funny because, like, you think about some of the best athletes of all time, Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, Phil Mickelson, like these guys were like degenerate gamblers, but it was their competitive edge. They wanted to compete in everything. They would gamble on everything. And like, that was a different era when that was just what they did. In today's world of social media where everybody knows your business and shares it online, like, why are you doing this? You know you're going to get caught. If you want to bet, like, go bet on something. Go play cards in Vegas. Like, go get your high there. Don't bet on sports. Don't bet on your own sport. Like, you know the rules. You know what's going to come back at you. Go find a different outlet for that. And if you want to gamble, great. But go gamble. Like I said, go play cards somewhere. Go play roulette. Like, go find a different outlet. Do not bet on sports, especially the one you're in, because you know what's going to happen.
Right. I got nothing for it. There's no excuse for it. In my eyes, there isn't.
There's none, and it's too bad because here's a young guy who's been kind of fighting to hang on with the big club, getting a chance, and he's gonna throw his whole career away over some bets he placed on baseball. And honestly, and I don't like the way this is gonna sound, but I'm gonna say it. What is winning a few bets gonna do to you versus playing and signing a bigger contract? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't.
But yeah, so I mean, this is, I believe, just the beginning.
I mean, I really can't talk. I don't gamble because you got to have money in order to gamble, and I don't have the first part of that. So, I mean, like, I really have no room to talk. But I mean, dude, you're at the highest level of your game. You know the repercussions of it, and you're still choosing to do that. Like, sorry, no sympathy, zero.
No, I don't feel bad. If you had a question in the chat, asking about Ohtani and was it just his translator? And yeah, as far as we know, it's only his translator. But will we find out more about Ohtani? Maybe, but we're definitely going to find out more about other players. It's going, like, we're going to continue to see more stuff come out. It started with Ohtani and Ipe, then it became David Fletcher and the other minor league player who I'm blanking on. Now it's Marcano. Like, there's more coming. This is just the beginning. Yeah. They're going to continue to investigate this bookmaker. They're going to continue to uncover names. More is coming, and it's going to be. It won't just be baseball. It's going to be other sports too.
Yeah, because they said there was 3 other names, but they haven't released the other names. Correct?
Yes, they found 3 other names in the meantime. Marcano was the first one to be announced. As other players are investigating, on top of the players they're already investigating, and then there's going to be more names they find. It's how it's going to go.
Yeah.
So one other thing for you. So I don't butcher his name here, but the Orioles just called up, was it Nestor Corby, who plays, he's an infielder for their minor league team. They decided not to call Jackson Holiday back up to fill the Jorge Mateo injury. So Mateo's out for 7 days. They called up a different infielder, opting to leave Holiday in the minor leagues because they do not feel he's shown enough progress. So there's now some questions about where Holiday stands in the organization, if he's considered to be not the likely guy to get called up for a short-term stint. So,
well, I think part of that too is you don't want to call up Holiday if it's just for a 7-day stint, because then you burn another one of his options, right?
You do.
Then you have, is it 3 options, and then you have to DFA, right? And then he can be picked up by any other team, I believe is what it is. I think every player has 3 options.
Yeah, but I think they have more options in the early years, and they phase down as they get further into the contract. But I don't know that for sure.
Gotcha.
But there is a limitation. You're right. I'm not sure if it's 3 early on or if it's 3 later. But either way, there is a limitation. You can't just keep calling the guy up and sending him down every week.
Yeah. So I think that's more of a kind of like a strategic move, and it's like, hey, it's not going to do any good for us to bring him up for a week and then send him back down. Like, he's not going to get anything out of that.
Connor Norby, my bad.
Connor Norby.
He's their number 5 prospect, a solid solid infielder, but a lot of people in baseball are going, interesting, you're deciding not to take Holiday.
I think it's because of what I just said. Look, I don't know if they don't want to bring him up for a week, then send him back down and just not have him really contribute in any way.
Yeah, and honest. I think that you brought him up. It didn't work the way you hoped. To bring him back up again and have it not work again, I think would be really bad for his development. So you're better off saying, look, we tried. Stay down there this year, kid. Maybe we'll call you up in September, but I don't see them calling him back up this year. I see him maybe coming up in September when the rosters expand, but I don't think they're going to call him up before then.
Yeah. Or, get better, get your at-bats in, get the grind in, and make the team out of spring training next year.
Yeah, I think they're trying to be cautious with him, knowing they don't want to roast him, bringing him up and back when he's not performing.
Yeah, you don't want him to come up and have another 2 for 36 stint.
No, you can't have that.
No. So, yeah, I agree. All right. Anything else before we head out for the night?
I've got a question for you, Nick.
All right, bring it.
Elly De La Cruz is a freak, but he's hitting 215. Is Elly De La Cruz the player we think he is?
As far as
overall, is he that next level generational talent people have been talking about, or is he just another guy who's going to show you some cool stretches of time?
I think yes to both. And I say that because, you're going to see weeks where no one's going to be able to get him out. No one's going to be able to keep him in the ballpark. And if you do keep him in the ballpark, he's going to steal all 4 bases each trip around the, I don't know. Is it Are we 215 because it's our second year in the league? People are starting to learn how to pitch to us. I mean, look at Corbin Carroll in Arizona.
Yeah, so sorry, he's 235. I flipped the number there.
Whatever, 235. I mean, still same thing. Corbin Carroll struggling in Arizona because people are learning how to pitch to him.
Yep.
Like the sophomore slump is a real thing.
It is.
Like the pitchers make adjustments. It's up to the hitters to go back and make that adjustment to get, back on the other side of that. He's electric. He's absolutely electric. Every ground ball that's hit to him, I go, all right, how fast is this laser going across the infield? That one was clocked at only 148, dude. Weak sauce. A absolute cannon, absolute wheels. He's electrifying to watch. I could watch that guy all the time. 235 isn't exactly what you want out of him. I think he's got a high ceiling, but I guess, give a middleman Dan answer. You're welcome, Sean. I think we will see stretches, but he is what we're seeing.
Yeah, I think he's going to wow you for a little while, then he's going to disappear because over his last 30 games he's hit 195. Last 15 games he's at 138. Last 7 games he's at 148. The problem is he strikes out in at least a third of his at-bats, if not closer to half of his at-bats. The strikeout rate's way too high. He's not getting on base. He's on base at a 331 clip, which is not bad. You'd think he'd be a little higher than that given all the things he can do. But there's some comments coming out of the Reds organization that there is a level of frustration with him because he's just not showing progress. Granted, he debuted last year. This is not a guy who's played hundreds of games.
Right.
But if anything, I feel like he's going backwards. Too many strikeouts. He's chasing too many pitches, taking too many good ones. He hits the ball 120 miles an hour sometimes, but he also swings and misses more often than not. And there's a feeling inside the organization that there's a level of frustration building up that he's not progressing. But he is electric. And I've heard, somebody came out the other day and said he's basically Billy Hamilton all over again with a little bit of power. Yeah, he can steal a bunch of bases. He can make some cool plays in the outfield, but he can't get on base enough to make that matter.
Yeah.
I don't know. He is absolutely an electric player. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's frustrating because he chases really bad pitches, and then will take good pitches. He doesn't seem to read pitches well. His timing is not great. He's also very young, so I think he's only 22, and this is his second season. So this is not a guy with a ton of experience, but he's got some amazing raw skills. And I think the Reds' frustration is not yet warranted. If we're sitting here this time next year and he's still hitting 235 and striking out 50% of the time, yeah, okay, you've got the right to get frustrated, but it's still too soon to.
You gotta find that one hitting coach that can click with him, right? Or it doesn't even have to be a hitting coach. Just find that one guy that's like, hey, like this is the approach we're gonna take, and maybe coachability is an issue for De La Cruz. I don't know him personally, obviously.
Nope.
That's why we're sitting here talking about him instead of being on the bench. But you just got to find that one guy like, hey, let's try to approach this at bat differently. We're trying to get on base and use your tools, right? If you're swinging and missing, you're not getting on. I mean, look at what Ichiro is able to do. Like if he got down in the count, he would literally just slap it to the left side and get to first base and beat it out. 60% of the time because he had
Tony Gwynn did the same thing. Choke up and just drop it out there.
Yeah, I don't even have to drop it out there for like Ichiro and De La Cruz. De La Cruz takes 5 strides and he's to each the next base.
Right.
I mean, the guy's 7 feet tall, which is another issue too because you just throw the ball anywhere near the plate and it's a strike on that dude because he's massive. But I don't know.
The one thing David Bell said that was concerning was that he's not adjusting. They don't think he's adjusting, and he approaches every swing like it's a 2-0 fastball. He's got one speed. He doesn't choke up. He doesn't slow down. He doesn't look for contact. He's just trying to hit the ball 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
And maybe he is. He's young and dumb like they all are. And he just wants to go out and put up crazy things. There's a level of maturity you need to get to that point where you're willing to just take a single.
It's maturity, but that's also how the game is being played now.
True. There's a level of that.
Like you have to that might not be what the Reds need at this point, and that's what's frustrating about it. But listen, singles don't get you paid in the MLB.
They don't.
Stolen bases, home runs, doubles, all those extra base hits. That's what gets you the big payday. And that's honestly, some of these guys, that's all they care about, to be honest. Like, they don't really care about winning. They may just want to put up the numbers and go home every day. And then, when their 6-year free agency status hits and they get that big paycheck, that's all that matters to them. Yeah. But we've talked about it. The pitching is just so damn good that it's easier to hit one solo shot off a guy than it is to string 5 hits together.
Yep. Like 100%.
And so the approach has changed at the plate. So, yeah, it's not what you want out of the guy, but
yeah, I get the red stance, but I think it's too soon to be saying that you don't think he's going to adjust and become the player you think he is. He's only 22. It's his second season. You got to give the kid some time.
Yeah, I agree with you fully. So
that's all I had.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, tuning in, and chiming in there, here and there. But before you go, please make sure that you like and follow us on Facebook. You can also follow on Instagram. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can also listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Keep sharing our reels, commenting on our reels. We love the interactions, even with the grammatical errors. So keep it up. And we will see you guys next Monday